Good afternoon. Welcome into Oven's Own Word, part number 6. Yes, we're talking about our lovely state legislature again.
Yes, we are.
But also, just like in part number 4, we've got a bit of a story time portion of the segment too. And we have Ian Hounds. I'm once again at the helm of this fun operation. Today I'm joined by Sarah Chazynski. And like I said at the top, we're going to have a little bit of a legislative update, and then we'll get into the story time portion here in a moment.
There's some important legislative updates though, right, Ian?
Well, yeah, and not all of them went quite as well as we hoped, but we'll delve into that here momentarily. First off, a little bit of housekeeping. We have Kimberly Rice, who is a budget committee member here in Hudson and also a state rep. Ralph Bohem, I believe I'm saying that right, state representative for Litchfield, and that address in Hillsborough 38, which I elaborate on a little bit here in a moment. Hudson only, we have Representatives Andrew Prout, Catherine Kenny, Dylan Dumont, who's also chair of our Board of Selectmen. Make of that what you will. Jeremy Salati, also state representative. Jordan Ullery of Budget Committee and Town Politics here in Hudson for decade upon decade. Bob Weary, Budget Committee, and also one of our state representatives.
Right.
6 of them in all. First order of business, we're talking about the Autism Data Protection Bill one more time. How did we get here? It reported out of the Health, Human Services, Elderly Affairs Committee back in mid-February. The committee recommended an expedient to legislate, which would effectively kill the measure had they passed that motion this week. Minority recommendation of ought to pass. There is a bit of an awkward situation with House Bill 1316 and 1593, which we're about to get into here. Overall House vote. Oh wait, the New Hampshire Republicans adjourned session yesterday to recess before they voted on it. As of midnight this morning, the bill died with no House roll call vote being taken.
Right.
How did our Hudson representatives vote? Oh wait, same problem. The New Hampshire House Republicans refused to allow a vote on it. 1593, House Judiciary Committee this time. It would have enshrined the non-discrimination protection from Section 504 into New Hampshire law. Majority recommendation interim study. Minority recommended ought to pass. Full House vote. Notice a theme here. New Hampshire Republicans refused to allow a vote on it yesterday.
Shocking.
This measure also died with no action being taken. How did our state reps here in Hudson vote for it? Oh yeah, did I say notice a theme here?
They couldn't vote on it. Wasn't allowed.
Because they adjourned session before a vote was allowed.
Correct.
All right, so of course, since we have spent so much time on this program talking about the two measures, I have just a few things to say. On the second day of a 2-day marathon, New Hampshire House Republicans blocked the effort to pass House Bill 1316 and 1593. On Thursday afternoon, the New Hampshire House was placed in recess and will not reconvene until session is called by the chair. The New Hampshire House Republicans are refusing to vote upon House Bill 1316 and 1593. This is a cowardly move, and it is a disservice to the residents of New Hampshire and constituent right here in Hudson. I call upon our New Hampshire viewers and followers to vote out all the New Hampshire House representatives. It is apparent that after the last 2 days, they are more concerned about following what the National Republican Party is telling them to do and what the Trump administration is telling them to do, rather than actually represent their constituents.
Yeah, and you're a constituent, Ian.
Oh,
You're
very
a
much so.
constituent, and there are so many constituents that are impacted by this and whose voices are not being listened to.
Oh, for sure. And the refusal to allow a vote on House Bill 1316 and 1593 is extremely appalling. The refusal to allow a vote on House Bill 1593 puts the disabled community of our state at the whims of whatever propaganda and misrepresentation the Trump administration comes up with next. And we have covered this in relation to the autism community on this very program in at least 5 to now 6 of all 6 segments to date. Their refusal to allow a vote on House Bill 1316 means that the autistic community of our state are still subject to being put on a national registry, like we saw with Nazi Germany.
Yep.
Refusing to allow the New Hampshire House to vote on House Bill 1316 means that the members of the autistic community in New Hampshire don't have full control and say over how their medical data is being used. That is absolutely disgusting and disrespectful to people, toward people like me. The statement is what I put together this morning in reaction to the Thursday actions of our New Hampshire House.
Yeah.
Sarah, if you wish to weigh in,
Yeah, thank you,
please do.
Ian. I mean, it is incredibly disheartening, appalling, abhorrent that the New Hampshire Republicans are not taking strong measures to protect the citizens that they represent here in New Hampshire.
Oh, definitely.
And that is a number of constituents. This is not something that is, let's come back to this on a rainy day, right? This is something that has been front and center in this movement of legislation, in this session at the State House, and something that we as a community have been working really hard to raise awareness around. And people people have come out, spoken up about this. There is a majority that is in favor, very clearly, of how to move on these bills.
Oh, for sure.
And seeing this happen makes me feel like those that are elected in those leadership positions in Concord, in our State House, are not digging deep into their own personal courage. Like you said, instead they're following party lines that are given to them, and they're not representing the people.
Oh, for sure.
Right.
And
right.
I mean, that is a point that I have struggled to find the correct way to diplomatically criticize them on in now 5 of the last 6 programs.
Yeah.
Because House Bill 1316, the Autism Data Protection Bill, and also House Bill 1337, the effort to repeal the New Hampshire Autism Council, has been a cornerstone of our discussions on this program.
Right.
Since part number 2, which we featured in early January with State Rep Foss and Louis Espedo, Executive Director of ABLE New Hampshire, on that particular afternoon.
Right. So how do you see this moving forward, Ian?
That is an excellent question, and I will go as far as to say that I've already been in contact over the last day or so with leaders in our disability community, like Sarah, like Lewis, like Representative Howard, and also chair of the Neurodivergent Caucus, Adam Thompson of Nashua,
Right.
in discussing that, okay, we look at this past week, we look at what actually happened this last week, it is far from the result that we were hoping for. It is perhaps one of the ugliest possible outcomes we could possibly have ended up with.
Right.
But also, more importantly, what is the next move? How do we play the long game? And Adam would vouch to.
Right.
How do we look at the big picture?
Yeah. Yep, exactly. And how do we now hold individuals that are in leadership positions accountable for ignoring their constituents?
Oh, for sure, right?
Yeah.
And that's very true right here in Hudson and Litchfield, certainly where our program is based, but that is true across the state also.
I agree.
Now we get into an update on House Bill 1337, the effort to repeal the New Hampshire Autism Council, which reported out of the House Health, Human Services, and Elderly Affairs Committee last week with a recommendation of ought to pass, minority recommendation of an expedient to legislate. On Wednesday afternoon of the two-day session, the full House voted to pass the repeal effort on a party line vote of 178 to 155 in favor of the ought to pass recommendation. It gets better. I will have something to say on this here in a moment. And again, as I did with the other two pieces of legislation, how did our reps for Hudson Litchfield vote? Every single one of them, whopping total of 8, voted in favor to repeal the council. And that's Representative Dumont voted for it. Kenny voted for it. Prout for it. Jeremy Salati, which after hearing him at school board deliberative session, I have little respect for. I admit it. Because he was spewing propaganda there too. Representative Ullery voted for the repeal. Bob Weary, also of our budget committee here in town, voted for the repeal. Ralph Boehm of Litchfield, same thing. Kimberly Rice, also on our budget committee here in town, same thing. In the first of the two-day marathon, the New Hampshire House session brought up House Bill 1337 for a vote. The vote was in favor of repeal, 178 to 155. This vote is very concerning because it would repeal the New Hampshire Autism Council based on Republican-driven talking points, concerns about inefficiencies, and propaganda. The New Hampshire House Republicans have chosen to ignore the fact that the Autism Council had attempted to correct the inefficiencies that were identified. Additionally, the bigger concern regarding the repeal being done is there is no plan to replace the council. They are simply repealing it for sake of propaganda and talking points. They have no plan for what would take its place. Oh, we'll take what the Autism Council does and put it on the shoulder to the Disability Quality Council. Fun bit of behind the scenes, we're going to have a segment on what each council actually does coming up here in a couple weeks. Finally, I am absolutely disgusted and angry to see that Hudson/Litchfield's 8 state representatives voted for the repeal and again deliberately ignored the citizens and constituents they represent and instead followed scapegoating of autistic people. Writing autistic people and autism out of Now, the New Hampshire government and state law does not make it go away. The statement I put out across our social media platforms yesterday morning in response to Wednesday's vote. Again, Sarah, if you would.
Yeah, thanks, Ian. I think my question is back to you, honestly, because you know, as we're watching this unfold, and now we've seen the leadership of our state government sideline any bills that would be in favor of protecting that community, protecting us, and then we see them voting on a bill that further sidelines the community that they serve. How does that make you feel as a constituent, Ian?
I'm going to point out two things here, and one of which, in regard to the autism data privacy bill that we talked about at the top of the program, I actually made written testimony, submitted it to the Health, Human Services, and Elderly Affairs Committee in February. It was ignored. By the time the executive session to the bill in mid-February, Representative Mazur and McDonald had already made up their minds on what they were going to do about it.
Yeah.
That bill had overwhelming support.
Right.
And as Shauna and I discussed in part number 4, it was a ratio of 10-1 in favor of the measure. It wasn't even close.
This is exactly what I'm saying, right? Yeah, exactly.
Second, now we fast forward and pivot to House Bill 1337 regarding the Autism Council. Again, overwhelming opposition to the attempt to repeal the council because of the services and information that the council provides for our state.
Right, so I want to be clear. This overwhelming support to not have this legislation pass was to support the council continuing.
For sure.
So I just want to be clear with everybody. That's what this was let's keep this council going. This is an important thing to have to represent our community and be inclusive and open channels and bring constituents into the program and have those voices heard.
Oh,
right,
for sure.
Ian? Yeah.
And I want to, and talking with folks like Sarah, Representative Howard, who we featured in part number 3, and also Adam Thompson of Nashua, we were all in agreement that, okay, yes, the council was far from perfect, but they had taken measures to right the ship.
Right.
They had taken measures to get their feet back under them. And then to find out that our very own New Hampshire House has turned around and voted for a repeal of the council simply because there's no excuse.
Well, they're not listening to the
Especially
voice
now.
of the people, right, Ian? They're not listening to the voice of the people. And so we're seeing leaders in the State House not listening to what the citizens of the state want to see.
Oh, for sure.
And so I think that's a really important piece here, is that there was overwhelming support to not pass this legislation, to keep the council intact and to further develop the council, right?
Yeah, and I was certainly among the chorus saying that, okay, far from perfect, that's a fair assessment, yes. They were working on it, though.
Right.
They were trying to correct the issue.
Right.
But instead, they're getting sidelined over what? Propaganda and talking points.
Well, and certainly not based on, and I'll say it again and again, not based on what constituents are very clearly expressing is important.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's doubly frustrating when earlier this week I contacted every single one of those 8 individuals that I mentioned at the top. By email.
Right.
Not only did I not get a reply, at least in the case of the Autism Council, they went ahead and did whatever they were told to do, rather than listen to people like me.
Right. And they represent you.
Exactly.
Right.
All right. Now that we've gotten the heaviness of the week out of the way, Sarah, we welcome into episode number 6, and now we get into the more lighthearted side of today's discussion.
Well, I think it informs why we're doing this, right?
Oh, yeah,
why
definitely.
this legislation is so important to talk about. And I think, in the New Hampshire state legislation, things get slammed through so quickly, and it can be challenging. I know for me, I'm a mom of 3, I'm a working mom. It's hard to kind of keep track of all of these things if they're not top of mind. People are just trying to keep a roof over their head and pay their bills and, get groceries on the table. And so I think when it comes down to it, Ian, it's important to talk about, why is this important?
Oh, definitely,
Why
for
are
sure.
we doing this, right?
And I will, as I've admitted on a couple of occasions, point out that originally I was driven by the national discussion, the
Right.
national scene last spring, early summer.
Right. And now we're seeing it here locally.
Now we're
right?
seeing it here in New
Yeah,
Hampshire, and
yep.
to a respect as well.
Yep.
And we've highlighted it, and was highlighted on a previous program, or a couple of them at this point, the Autism Data Protection Bill. Okay, yes, modeled after what Governor Pritzker did in Illinois last May to counter a national registry.
Yeah.
It pisses me off beyond words to see the fact that it just got railroaded this week and didn't even get so much as a roll call vote.
Right. I mean, I think it highlights to the point that, we look to our local government to protect us, especially here in New Hampshire. We're the live free or die state, right? Mm-hmm. And we look to our local government to honor that. And it feels like this week was really challenging on that. So I'd love for us to talk about, some common misconceptions about neurodiversity.
To try and
why are we doing this? Why are we here talking about this? So, as you mentioned, I'm Sarah Chazynski. I have a background in education. I'm a state certified teacher. I have a master's in education. I actually helped to develop the hands-on experiential learning program through the farm department at the Crotchet Mountain School. It's changed a few hands since then. But this is something that's really important to me. I come from what I like to say is a neurospicy family. And a lot of common misconceptions about neurodiversity is that, the vast majority of people with neurodiversity are actually highly functional. Mm-hmm. And in most cases, are functioning like you and me, have conversations, are navigating the dynamics of our society. And where I think we've come into roadblocks is the fact that we've created this box, this conception around, if you don't fit into this box, then you don't actually fall into the line of how we're expecting you to be, versus creating a platform that I always strived for when I was developing curriculum and programs that allows access at various points for varying ability. Mm-hmm. And all of our abilities have superpowers to some extent, right? So it's, how do we celebrate that? How do we bring that forward? And I feel very strongly that we wouldn't need, the strong push for accommodations if we actually honored the diversity within our communities.
Oh, for
and
sure.
we're aware of how to bring people into the fold. So that's one thing. It's like, people, we walk around, we have family dinners, we're in the grocery store. We all have varying neurological makeups that give us superpowers or varying abilities of how to function.
And to that end, and I guess I'm borrowing this from our prior guest, Shauna Hallberg, who was here a couple weeks ago, closer to a month ago at this point. That's what struck me when I heard the analogy about autistic people being a different kind of operating system.
Yeah.
Because that is in fact at least valid to a point.
Right, sure, yeah.
Yes, we're different, but there are some among us that are very capable, very functional, and make very strong contributions to our community.
Absolutely.
And I've had the privilege of now showcasing at least two of those examples.
Yeah.
State Representative Heath Howard of the Barrington area.
Yep.
Similarly, Lily Foss, State Representative out of Manchester.
Out of Manchester, yep.
Both have been on the program with me, and that's been the striking thing, and how equally knowledgeable and equally articulate they were both.
Absolutely.
In terms
Absolutely.
of what they brought to the conversation.
Right, and so I think this is something that we need to kind of bring into awareness, that we have this varying neurological function across the board, different operating systems, different ways of functioning, and so there's this common assumption that a neurodivergent individual is at a disadvantage. However, this is not often the case, and yes, we need accommodations. I don't want to ignore that, because that is important. We need accommodations, and we need to stand strong for varied access points, because we have put this box in place that does not take into account the different types of operating systems, if you will, Ian, that we all have.
It's not my analogy.
No, that was
Shauna,
great. Shauna did a good. That was really good. I really like that a lot. It's a different operating system, and so there are many different forms of neurodivergence across the spectrum, and how people respond to things in different ways. There's neurodivergence in terms of sensory processing and all of this that. Bringing awareness to that and finding ways to build teams, build systems that take into account all of these superpowers and varied abilities is really important. And I think, you hit it very clearly that, neurodivergence is not an illness or a deficit.
Oh, for sure.
Right? Exactly. It's a difference in operating system. It's a difference in neurological function,
and
right?
It's something that and a lot of what we're talking about here today gets back to what I have said all the way along, be it last December or earlier this year.
Yeah.
That's that's one of the main cornerstones of this program, is to not only get people to understand what our situation is, what we're facing in terms of challenges, but how can we address the challenges to be more inclusive and better informed?
Right, and I think that's really important, Ian. That's right to the point of, how do we give voice to those who don't know how or don't have access to, aren't able to, aren't comfortable doing it. And so I really am so grateful for you doing this program, as you know, so that it does give voice, so that we can have this conversation. This isn't, something to be ashamed of. This is something to celebrate. This is something to honor. This is something to bring into our community.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
And to that point, Sarah, you and I were actually talking with Mike and Matt, two of the production coordinators here at Hudson Community TV, before we got
just
on
before
camera
getting
today,
on camera, yep.
and came to the realization that some of our closest friendships, some of the people that we've gotten to know really well, myself included, have been those who are not exactly what you call average. I mean, yes, they're different, but they deserve the same inclusivity that you and I do.
100%. 100%, Ian. So I really appreciate that. Yeah, for sure. And so I think, this brings us to that point of talking about how do we celebrate this, right? What are the advantages? What are the superpowers of being neurodivergent? And I love this because I'm someone who loves creating teams based on this, creating classroom environments based on this, with bringing in all of those different superpowers to be able to move a project along.
Oh, for sure.
For example, one person with their neurological operating system may be able to respond to, rapid or emergency actions very quickly, whereas another person may be better at a longer game and being able to do, the PowerPoints and the backup, whereas another person can say, okay, I can get up and I can make that phone call, or I can write that, response right now in the next hour, right?
I mean, that is absolutely true, and at least to an extent, to two of our friends and fellow advocates, Representative Howard and Adam Thompson, are very much like myself. We're very analytical. We're very good at that, and I keep referring to it on and off. We're good at the multidimensional chess. We're good at the long game, looking at, okay, this week turned out very ugly. What's next?
Right.
What's the next move?
And then actually your operating system is able to dive into that and really understand what is next and make a plan that other people can jump into to support. So, so this is really something that, goes into the point that, often, people with neurological variances and different operating systems are able to hyper-focus and allows for extreme understanding of specific areas. And so that's that deep dive, right? That's that foundation, that's that long game that you're talking about.
Oh,
that's
for sure.
Incredible. And this is extremely consistent. There's a level of incredible care about these areas of interest, which, if I may, Ian, is why we're doing this program.
Oh, definitely.
Right?
And I've touched upon it a couple of times in prior installments.
Yeah.
That I spoke in Concord on the State House grounds 2 different times last year about autism awareness.
Right. Yes, you
It
did.
was from that, and again, partially inspired by the national discussion, national backdrop at that point.
Yep. Yeah.
That was the motivation. It was folks like Sarah, our buddy Representative Heath Howard, and others that pointed out to me that having that lived experience, and Shauna and Lewis would refer to it as, was the main reason that I took on this project. It was the main reason we're doing this. It was never just about me. It was bringing others in our community in as well, to give them a chance to have their story, to contribute their background. Because I will admit, I'm a fan of the long game, multidimensional chess angle of this. There are certain things that I admit I don't know. And that's where I bring others in to help supplement what needs to happen next.
Right. And I always say, I'm not an expert at everything, right? That's why you have a team, right? Right. That's why you have a team. That's why you create, all of these dynamics so that we can share with each other in a community and be a stronger community because of it. And
for sure.
I think that's really important. The understanding of specific areas, the deep dive, this incredible care about these areas of interest, this creativity and innovation and ability to think about things in different ways, be it visually or systemic or, kind of that long game that you're talking about, Ian, is exactly it.
That's how that whole long game analogy is how I make sense of basically this entire last couple of days, really.
Right.
That's how I make sense of what's going on. That's how I make sense of, the New Hampshire House Republicans, for a lack of a better term, flipped the middle finger at the disability community, not once, but 3 times this week.
Right, completely ignored.
Okay.
Completely ignored.
What's the next move?
Swiped him to the side.
How do we move forward from that? How do we press the reset button and look at, and I was talking with Lewis and Spito of Able New Hampshire today about this very subject.
Yeah.
How do we reset? How do we work with the hand that we're dealt and move on to the next step?
Right, and I really appreciate that. And that's that next thing of like, this intense attention to detail. Tracking this and being aware of it and incredibly conscientious of this these are superpowers. These are incredible superpowers of varying or different operating systems that we all have through our neurological patterns, right? And some of the things, and when we talked about doing this show, Ian, we talked about...
And we started talking about this.
I know, quite a while ago.
Quite
a while ago. But it was really important to me to celebrate the people that are heroes, that are innovators, that are cutting edge, that have, pushed development or science or culture or community that are self-identified as neurodivergent, right?
Oh, for sure.
So we have great examples. Emily Dickinson, autistic poet, Albert Einstein. I think we've all had this conversation and understanding, right?
I mean, these are certainly really well-known examples.
Yes, exactly.
I merely highlighted two that I've had privilege of not only having conversations with, but been able to work with.
Yes.
Through doing this program,
right.
Just right here in New Hampshire, mind you.
Right, and those are individuals that are active in our state house. They're active in our state legislature,
very much so.
Or some of the others you've mentioned are active in civil society organizations that are
advocacy groups, yeah,
advocacy
exactly.
groups and keeping marginalized or vulnerable voices amplified and heard, right? And so we have, for example, creative minds, Steven Spielberg, Simone Biles, who, we've all seen go through a lot the last couple years and work through this to be an incredible competitive athlete, right?
And I am in awe and appreciation of what she's going through, certainly.
Yeah.
I would not be surprised if she hangs it up, because she's got very little else to prove. She is very well respected in her arena.
She's incredibly well respected, and she, I think, very similar to you, Ian, has used the access of a platform to be able to share her experience so that other people don't feel ashamed or alone, because this is nothing to be ashamed of. These are superpowers. These are different, I love that, different operating systems, right? That are able to do different things in different ways that are superpowers to
For
me.
sure. And
yeah.
And I mean, that's part of the driving force behind keeping this program going like it is, and we're on to part number 6 with this recording, certainly.
Yeah.
And keep in mind that, as I pointed out on a couple of occasions now, this whole program came out of 2 speeches about autism awareness almost a year ago on the plaza of our very state house. Little did I know at the time that it would be anywhere near what it is today, number one. And number two, when Alejandro and I were discussing this concept last summer and fall, we figured, okay, we've got enough to work with for 2 segments, and that was it.
Just kidding.
We had no idea that we're already on number 6.
We're on number 6, and we still have so much more to go.
Oh, for sure.
There's layers and layers of this, and the conversation is so important.
For sure.
And then there's people like Daryl Hannah, who is on the autism spectrum, is an actress, an environmental activist. And many of us know the common name Greta Thunberg, who has championed many things. And yes, you can disagree with her, you can, whatever your personal opinions are, but she's moved the needle. She's brought up conversation. She has broken through glass ceilings in so many ways. And that's such an incredible thing. Please, Ian.
And to that point, that's one thing that I want to jump on here. With Greta Thunberg, for example, she's an environmentalist, very outspoken about climate change.
Yeah.
That's what we need to be showcasing and including here.
Right.
People who, okay, yes, they might be different underneath, but on the surface they appear normal. And no, you're not going to agree with everybody. Heck, I have said things on this very program that I don't expect everybody's going to agree with me on.
That's fair, Ian.
Fine.
We're humans. That's the beauty
I
of
can
being
live with
humans
that.
in a nation we hope to keep free, right?
But certainly with everything that we're seeing going on right now, both nationally and here in the state,
Yeah.
I believe the timing is critical to be having these conversations, having story time segments like this, so people understand that it goes beyond whatever the talking points say.
Right.
It goes beyond whatever the propaganda is being put out. People that are neurodivergent are just like the rest of us.
They're part of our community.
Yeah.
This is our
exactly.
community. These are essential people in our community.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
And I think that that's something that I think is so important here, Ian, is that, whatever we are talking about here really brings that front and center. This is not something to be brushed aside and not voted on. We need to vote in affirmation of our community members, and they are, incredible pieces of our community, and they make up the fabric and the fiber of our communities. Yeah.
And to circle back to the New Hampshire legislative piece, like we talked about at the top of the program and have talked about several times in the course of this program, those measures weren't just feel good so we could say we checked a box. Those measures were brought forward for a reason.
Right.
In the case of 1316, it was a valiant attempt to curb the danger that the autism community was put into by our National Health and Human Services Secretary last spring.
Right.
That's why I'm so passionate. That's why I'm so frustrated, motivated, yet pissed off to see that the New Hampshire House refused to act upon it yesterday.
Yeah.
The danger has not gone away. It's still there, despite them choosing to ignore that particular legislation.
And I think that's important, Ian, that we recognize the fact that the individuals that are put in positions of leadership in our state right now are not protecting the people.
Oh, for sure. And the accountability.
Yeah, exactly.
The accountability and chance for accountability is not there either.
Right. And I think, to this point of celebrating the superpowers, celebrating the ways that, we have neurodivergence as incredible examples, right, as to how these contributions truly push our societies forward, push our communities forward, that benefit each other. This isn't just about one individual. This is about all of us together and how this comes together.
Oh, for sure.
Every day. So thank you, Ian.
And certainly that's why I have taken such calculated yet sharp condemnation and opposition to what I've seen in the New Hampshire House of Representatives in the past couple weeks. I feel like outside of some of the folks that we have showcased, granted, and they're trying their hardest.
It's the leadership. Let's say what it is. It's the leadership that hold the majority, that are making the calls.
And I feel like on a broader case, the House Republicans are the issue here.
Yeah.
They have their minds made up already. They don't care what common sense, they don't care what legislation would fundamentally protect underrepresented and societally disadvantaged group.
Yeah, so I guess, our message to House Republicans, to the Senate Republicans.
To circle back to the top of the discussion.
to the top of the discussion, which is what impacts all of this, right, is, hey, New Hampshire Republicans, come stand with your people. Get courage.
Where's your spine?
Where is your spine? Because we expect you to stand with us as people.
Yeah. And
yep.
just because you want to repeal the Autism Council over propaganda, you're ignoring the fact that they're trying to correct their problems. You're trying to ignore the work they're actually doing.
Right.
And we touched on them a little bit in part 2.
Right, and I know you will go into the councils at another
We're
segment.
going to be delving into that a little bit further in another segment.
Stay tuned for that.
That being said, you'd rather repeal the Autism Council because your national party and the current federal administration has told you to. You choose not to listen to the people you represent. Again, to my point about House Bill 1316, a 10-to-1 ratio in favor of it.
Yeah.
And by not voting upon it yesterday, you in effect killed it.
Right.
That danger hasn't gone away. The discriminatory actions that would be protected had House Bill 1593 passed yesterday. That would have addressed the discrimination issue to a point. Again, y'all chose not to vote on it. Where is your common sense? And okay, I can hear Louis Speedo, executive director of Able New Hampshire, telling me earlier this week that common sense is not that common in this context.
But
it doesn't change my point.
But it's also
the danger and the risks don't go away.
I completely agree.
Autism doesn't go away.
Nope.
Just because it's mildly inconvenient for you to be held accountable on your actual actions and opinions.
Well, and I think that's it, Ian. I think call it like it is. We're calling on GOP members, Republican members here in New Hampshire to start listening to and truly representing the people that they serve.
And particularly and where we're a Hudson-based independent program, yes. Especially the 8 that I highlighted at the top of the program.
Right. Thank you, Ian.
For sure. We touched on your story some already, but if you have more to add on that.
Yeah, I think, as I shared, I come from a neurospicy family. I like to call it that because I think it is that.
It's a good analogy,
it brings that energy, it brings that varied thinking to the table, which allows for creative problem solving. It's something that has always been part of my desire and drive to be a teacher is to create inclusive spaces of varied learning and to be able to celebrate, highlight, and elevate all of our ways of thinking as problem-solving pieces of the puzzle.
Oh, for sure.
And it takes all of them.
Oh, yeah,
definitely. It takes that creative input. It takes that catalyst and then that base and to be able to shake it up to make a reaction happen, right? And that's how we are as people, and that's what we bring to the table with our different operating systems.
Yeah,
right?
And to that point, that's why I've taken this on, and that's why I took on the initial speech in last year.
Right.
When talking to folks like Sarah, talking to Representative Howard slightly at length.
Yeah.
Additionally, and to later find out that he and I are very similar in many ways. And then talking to some of the folks on the Hudson Democratic Town Committee as well at an event in Manchester last spring. And it was the collection of those discussions that led me to realize that I've got a unique position here. I've got a unique platform here.
Yeah.
And although some of the subject matter at times is very dark and still is,
Sure.
it's stuff that we have got to not only rise to the occasion and answer to, as best as we can. It's something that we've got to keep calling out each time it's coming up.
I agree.
This week is no exception to that.
I agree.
And as we wrap up this afternoon, we've got some final bits of housekeeping. Myself, I'm one of the co-producers of this program and have ended up hosting the majority thereof. Alejandro, who I referenced a little bit earlier, co-hosted with me in part number 1, and also one of the co-producers of this program. And a quick hello to him wherever he's watching us from.
Hi,
Last I
Alejandro.
heard, that was somewhere in Italy, because he's currently on vacation. Hope he's enjoying it. And then some of the guests that we've had over the course of the program already, and this has become a bit of a I'm proud to say this has become a bit of a who's who of the discussion, who's who of the advocacy and demographic. Louis Espito, Executive Director at Able New Hampshire, joined us in part number 2. Lily Foss, who I mentioned a little bit earlier, State Representative of Manchester, also joined us in part 2. Kristen Evans, Policy Director at Able New Hampshire and fellow advocate in nearby, and hails from nearby Pelham,
Right.
not far from where we sit right now. State Representative Heath Howard, a good buddy of mine, and one of the 2 people I point to and why I've gotten into this discussion, certainly, along with Sarah. Shauna Hallberg, who joined us for part number 4 a couple weeks back. So yeah, it's a team effort. It's not just about me. It's bringing in everybody who has a story to share on the subject.
I think that's really
And
important.
it's bringing in those who have knowledge bases that I don't necessarily have. And as I've said, all the way through now part number 6, I am not shy about admitting to the fact that I don't know everything about the subject. But for darn sure, I bring in folks who are more knowledgeable than myself
Or have
and
different,
can be
right?
better
Have-
spoken to particular
Sure.
pieces of the discussion.
Right, they have a different piece to bring to the table, right? And that's
Absolutely.
that team, that's that superpower, right?
Absolutely, for
Yeah.
sure. And then in-house, Matt Guerrero, one of the production coordinators here at Hudson Community TV, our fearless leader, Mike Johnson, Director of Community Media, Mike Pylon, one of the production coordinators here at HCTV. Okay, I don't think I quite finished this one, but you can find us online on the HCTV streaming website, keyword of its own words, and watch now parts 1 through, okay, now we're up to
6.
Holy
Yeah.
moly. Watch all 6 portions. Our Facebook page, for those who have been following it this week, you'll see that we're doing not quite live updates just yet, but
Frequent updates.
nearly same day updates on activities going on, particularly at our state legislature. Oh, by the way, we're on Substack too. And that's where some of the lengthier statements have gone up. And also we're on Blue Sky also. And one of the things I take pride in is we have our own YouTube channel. Yes, we're on youtube.com of its own words -New Hampshire. And that is a unique component to all of this. Because not only can you watch everything that I've worked with the HCTV team to put forward in terms of installments, as the weather warms up and as things continue to evolve, we're going to gradually start having some of our own self-recorded content going on there also. Still working on how that's going to work yet, but stay tuned. Okay, finally, closing out today's show, talked about the online stuff, and I kind of let the cat out of the bag a little bit here. Next part is likely to be an educational program on what the New Hampshire Disability Quality Council does and what the Autism Council does, so people have a better understanding of what we've been talking about on why that possibility of repeal is so problematic.
Yeah, what does this legislation actually mean
What
for
are they
real
trying
people?
to accomplish there?
Right. Yep.
And also, I'm sorry, not sorry, but trying to take the responsibility to the Autism Council and dump it in the lap of the Disability Quality Council. How's that even workable? How's that gonna help? Because the two have distinct identities already for a reason. They each have their own contribution to the table. They each have their own role in the discussion. Mm-hmm. They play their own role within the team, to get back to one of your analogies.
That's
here,
right.
Sarah.
It's a team.
And lastly, and I am a fan of doing, we finish off the show with some final thought, final discussion, final messaging.
Yeah, I think, first of all, Ian, thank you for doing this.
Of course.
Thank you for stepping up as you have, that I've seen you publicly speak. I know how important this is to you. Thank you for giving voice to this, mm-hmm. and for having those out there who don't have this platform or access to this, to being able to amplify their voice. So really appreciate you doing this. And again, my closing thought and my closing comment is, Republican members, we expect you to stand with the community. And we will hold you accountable to do so, because
for sure.
These are your community members. The legislation that is passed or brushed off the table impacts real people. And that, our neurospicy communities are what drives our innovation, drives our technology, drives development, and builds stronger communities. So thank you, Ian.
Oh, most definitely. You're quite welcome. And I reflect on now the sixth installment of the program, which when we were talking last summer, I never would have imagined it would have gotten this far, let alone this in depth, number one. Just because our state legislature this very week chose to ignore the constituents and people they represent in respect to autism data privacy, particularly in regard to medical data. They chose to abandon the attempt to enshrine the non-discrimination protections in Section 504 into state law, just because they consciously made these decisions this week. Does not change the environment we're currently in. It doesn't mean the risk has gone away. It sure as heck doesn't mean that autistic people have gone away, even though they're trying to insist otherwise. And certainly in New Hampshire, in the case of here in New Hampshire, all of these actions are very concerning.
Yeah.
And it's part of why I do this program now for the sixth time. And the situation's continuing to get worse, not better.
Yeah.
There is a certain amount of arrogance and ignorance that has infiltrated the New Hampshire House leadership, or Majority House leadership, excuse me. It is alarming, it is concerning, and as I have tried to say with my messaging on social media this week, and I asked my followers, both on social media and viewers of these programs, take note on what's going on. Understand what our state legislature is actually doing. Yes, we're into the midterm election year already. The only way we're going to change this, truly, is to hold them accountable and continue these discussions, good, bad, and different, and continue to educate ourselves on what's at risk, what's at stake, and most importantly, what the heck we can do about it.
Yes, there it is. Thank you,
And with
Ian.
that, I look forward to having y'all back for part number 7 in the next couple of weeks, and we're going to be doing a deeper dive into what the Autism Council and what the Disability Quality Council actually are. As I was talking with Lewis Able, New Hampshire this morning, it occurred to me that we had only touched upon these in part number 2. And I would be remiss not to say to the Irish or wannabe Irish in our audience, have a happy, safe, and responsible St. Patrick's Day this next week.
Thank you, Ian.
Thanks for watching.